Good evening, Appalachia, and welcome back to The Late Shift, broadcasting once again from the Enclave Network Channel, where apparently somebody continues to believe giving me a television program is a responsible decision. Tonight we've got another interesting collection of guests. We've got a man who appears to have confused a strongman costume with an actual personality, a daredevil whose definition of personal safety appears to be something that happens to other people, a very wise master whose wisdom becomes considerably less convincing whenever an attractive woman enters the room, and finally, a Nuka-Girl who has somehow managed to make a rocket suit look considerably more practical than most things currently flying around Appalachia. But before we get into tonight's guests, I have been informed that Command would like me to mention something slightly more musical. Our album, America Remained, is now available across Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, and other major music platforms. The album features music performed by yours truly, your humble host, Lincoln Monroe. Yes, I know, a television host with a singing career. Apparently one form of public exposure wasn't enough. But if you've enjoyed the music we featured throughout our productions, or if you simply want to hear what happens when I am given a microphone without anyone from Command standing nearby to stop me, America Remained is available now. I have been told that is called promotion. I prefer to think of it as giving the public another opportunity to appreciate my considerable range. And with that completely unbiased announcement out of the way, let's meet tonight's guest before I become even more unbearable. This is The Late Shift. Our first guest tonight has arrived wearing a strongman outfit, which I suppose is one way of announcing that you're confident in your physical abilities before anyone has actually tested them. Please welcome our guest.
Thank you, Monroe. It's an honor to be here. I've been told you're quite popular with the ladies yourself.
I've been told several things about myself lately, most of them by me. Now, you've built quite a reputation around your strength. You look the part, certainly. The muscles, the outfit, the confident expression, although I'm beginning to suspect the expression is doing most of the heavy lifting.
I am extremely strong. You should see what I can do with a barbell.
I'd rather see what you can do with a conversation, because I've noticed something interesting since you arrived. You haven't mentioned your training, your accomplishments, or even a single feat of strength without first looking at every woman on the set.
I like to know my audience.
You have been staring at our makeup artist for 6 minutes.
She's very talented.
She hasn't done anything yet.
Exactly. I'm impressed already.
Let's get back to the strength. What's the heaviest thing you've ever lifted?
300 pounds.
Impressive. And what was it?
A woman.
That wasn't the answer I was expecting.
I thought you meant emotionally.
I did not. How much did the barbell weigh?
250.
So your greatest physical achievement is lifting less weight than you claimed 5 seconds ago.
Well, technically, the woman was heavier.
Technically, you have made this interview much more interesting than I expected. Have you ever actually competed professionally?
I've competed in several contests.
And how did you do?
I participated.
That's not a placement.
It is if you don't believe in failure.
I see. So you're less of a strongman and more of a motivational speaker who owns a very tight costume.
I prefer to think of myself as a physical specimen.
So does the medical examiner, apparently. There is one thing I will give you. You have confidence.
Thank you.
Perhaps too much of it.
Confidence is important with women.
We're back to the women.
I never left.
That may be the most honest answer you've given me all evening. Appalachia, our thanks to our strongman, whose greatest strength appears to be maintaining confidence while providing absolutely no evidence to support it. When we return, we meet a daredevil who has apparently mistaken a cannon for a reasonable method of transportation.
Attention, Patriots! This unit has conducted surveillance of a late-night broadcast known as The Late Shift. The program is hosted by Lincoln Monroe, a civilian attempting to maintain professional composure while allowing random wastelanders to sit in front of a camera and explain their life choices. First discovery. The host begins each interview by asking reasonable questions regarding the guest's occupation, experiences, and activities throughout Appalachia. This unit initially classified the program as responsible journalism. This classification lasted approximately 4 minutes. The guests routinely provide additional information that was not requested. Some describe questionable decisions. Others reveal embarrassing personal experiences. One individual spent 12 minutes explaining why a perfectly normal event was, in fact, entirely their fault. Second discovery. Monroe continues asking questions even after the guest has clearly provided enough information to end the discussion. This unit has observed guests attempting to change the subject, redirect the conversation, and occasionally laugh in an attempt to escape further questioning. Monroe continues. This is not interrogation. There are no restraints, no classified documents, no physical coercion. Only a microphone, a chair, and a host who has discovered that humans will voluntarily confess embarrassing information when given adequate television airtime. The program has successfully combined serious wasteland stories with comedy, personal experiences, and individuals whose decisions require additional investigation. This unit has reviewed several episodes. The primary threat is not the guests. It is the possibility that another guest will arrive with an even worse story. Conclusion: The Late Shift is technically a talk show. However, analysis indicates it functions more efficiently as voluntary public humiliation with studio lighting. Analysis confirms Lincoln Monroe does not need an interrogation room. He only needs a guest, a microphone, and enough time to let them ruin their own reputation.
Our next guest has developed a reputation for doing things that most sensible people would consider a very bad idea, and then apparently doing them again after the first attempt nearly kills him. Tonight, we've brought him onto the show because somebody decided the safest place for him was apparently next to a cannon. Please welcome our resident daredevil.
Thank you, Monroe. It's good to be here.
That's interesting, because the last time we saw you, you were being fired out of a cannon.
Yes, sir.
And you survived.
Yes, sir.
Then you did it again.
Also, yes.
At what point did you decide that surviving the first attempt meant the experiment needed a second round?
Well, that's how you know it works.
No, that's how you know you haven't learned anything. What actually goes through your head when you're standing beside a cannon knowing you're about to be launched across the stage?
Honestly, ain't much.
That may explain several things.
You get used to the noise, the smoke, the impact, the climb. After a while, it just becomes another day of work.
Another day at work? Most people have a bad day at work because their supervisor sends them an unpleasant email. You get launched through the air at high speed and call it Tuesday.
At least nobody can schedule a meeting while you're in the air.
That's actually a strong argument. What is the worst injury you've had from one of these stunts?
I'd rather not list, sir.
Because there are too many?
I don't remember all of them.
That's considerably worse.
There was one landing where I couldn't feel my legs for a few minutes.
And you continued?
Eventually.
You know, most people hearing that sentence would immediately reconsider their career.
I did.
For how long?
About 10 minutes.
Then what?
I asked if we could do it from higher up.
Of course you did. Do you ever get frightened?
Oh, absolutely. Fear keeps you focused.
And apparently keeps you from noticing that the cannon is pointing directly at your future medical expenses.
Ain't that what insurance is for?
Do you have insurance?
No, sir.
I think we've discovered the real reason you aren't afraid of anything. So what's next for you?
Whatever looks dangerous enough.
Somehow that may be the most convincing argument you've made tonight. Appalachia, our thanks to a man who has somehow turned surviving terrible decisions into a professional qualification. When we return, we'll meet a master whose wisdom is matched only by his enthusiasm. Our next guest is a man who has spent many years pursuing wisdom, discipline, enlightenment, and the higher principles of life. He is respected by those who have studied under him, feared by those who have challenged him, and apparently incapable of behaving normally whenever a beautiful woman walks within 20 feet of him. Please welcome Master Doshi.
Monroe, it is a pleasure to be here. I have spent my life studying the body, the mind, discipline, patience, and the difficult art of understanding when a person should speak and when a person should remain silent. Unfortunately, I have never been particularly successful with the last one when beautiful women are involved.
At least you're honest about it.
Honesty is the foundation of wisdom. A master must be willing to recognize his weaknesses before he can overcome them. I have defeated anger, impatience, fear, arrogance, and the temptation to strike an opponent simply because he has an irritating face. Women, however, remain a more complicated opponent.
You've described women as opponents.
Only because I have not yet found another word that accurately describes the level of concentration required to remain respectable around them. A beautiful woman enters the room and suddenly every lesson I have ever taught disappears from my mind. I begin thinking about flowers, poetry, romance, and several other subjects that are considerably less appropriate for a television program.
So all that discipline you've developed over the years just disappears.
Not all of it. My posture remains excellent. My thoughts, unfortunately, have their own training program.
You really are proving remarkably difficult to embarrass.
At my age, embarrassment is a luxury. I have survived enough injuries, arguments, foolish students, bad decisions, and women who were considerably smarter than I was to understand that dignity is something you recover after the incident, sometimes several days later. When I was younger, I believed strength was the most important quality a person could possess. Then I learned that strength without wisdom simply creates a stronger fool. Wisdom came later. Patience came later still. I learned to observe people before judging them, to listen before speaking, and to understand that every action has consequences. Then I met beautiful women and discovered that apparently I still have homework.
You have spent this entire interview undermining your own philosophy.
No, Monroe, I am demonstrating it. A wise man does not pretend he has conquered every weakness. He knows exactly where those weaknesses are. Mine usually wear very nice dresses.
I think that may be the first piece of wisdom you've offered tonight that absolutely nobody in command will want quoted.
Then command should have chosen a less honest master. But jokes aside, I take my responsibilities seriously. My students come to me because they want guidance, not because they expect perfection. I teach them to remain calm when circumstances become difficult, to respect the people around them, and to understand that discipline is not about becoming emotionless. It is about deciding what deserves your attention. Of course, if someone beautiful walks into the training hall, I may require a brief adjustment to that philosophy.
A brief adjustment?
Perhaps a prolonged one.
Master Doshi, you've given us wisdom, philosophy, questionable romantic advice, and several reasons to keep attractive women away from your training sessions. What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned?
That life is too short to pretend you are something you are not. Be respectful, be disciplined, laugh at yourself when you deserve it. And if you are fortunate enough to meet someone beautiful who enjoys your company, do not immediately embarrass yourself by trying to impress her.
And have you personally mastered that lesson?
Monroe, I have spent my entire life mastering difficult things. That one is still in progress.
Appalachia, our thanks to Master Doshi, a man whose wisdom is considerable, whose discipline is questionable, and whose greatest remaining challenge appears to be maintaining composure around beautiful women. When we return, we meet a woman who has taken the Nuka-Cola aesthetic to an entirely different level.
Ma'am, I've been reviewing the pre-war training files again.
As you should. They are the backbone of our mission. What stood out this time?
It said America's greatest threat was infiltration by communists. Honestly, I think the real threat was cafeteria meatloaf.
Enough. This vault is not a stage for your jokes. We prepare to reclaim America. While you mock the files that keep us sharp, consider yourself on sanitation duty.
Understood, ma'am. But I'd still take sanitation duty over another tray of that meatloaf.
Our final guest tonight is stepping onto the set in a suit that has become almost as recognizable as the drink it represents. She's wearing the Nuka-Girl Victory Rocket suit, which is certainly one way to make an entrance. Now, I have to admit, when I first heard we were interviewing a Nuka-Girl, I expected a discussion about advertising, pre-war celebrity culture, and perhaps the occasional complaint about how difficult it is to maintain a rocket suit in the middle of Appalachia. Instead, I was told that our guest actually has quite a story behind the suit. Please welcome Nuka-Girl.
Thank you, Monroe. I have to admit, I was wondering what kind of questions you were going to ask me. Usually when people see the suit, they immediately want to know where I got it, whether it actually flies, or whether I'm working for Nuka-Cola. The answer to the last one is no. The answer to the second one is also no, although I have had several people encourage me to test that theory from increasingly high locations.
That sounds like exactly the sort of advice you should ignore.
I've learned that in Appalachia, the people giving you the most confident advice are usually the people who won't be standing underneath you when it goes wrong. I've had strangers tell me that the rockets must work because the suit looks aerodynamic. I've also had people ask if I can actually breathe inside it. I usually tell them that yes, I can breathe. What I cannot do is explain why someone thought a rocket suit was a practical choice for walking through the mire.
Yet here you are.
Exactly. There's something about the outfit that makes people smile even now. You can walk through a settlement where everyone is carrying military rifles, wearing armor, worrying about raiders and radiation, and then suddenly there's a woman in a Nuka-Cola rocket suit walking past them. People stop. They laugh. They ask questions. For a few minutes, they're not thinking about the wasteland.
So the suit is less about looking impressive and more about giving people something to enjoy?
That's how I see it. Before the war, Nuka-Girl was advertising. She was bright, ridiculous, energetic, and completely impossible to ignore. After everything that happened, I think there's something valuable about keeping that spirit alive. We're surrounded by ruins. Sometimes people need something colorful and completely unnecessary. Not everything has to be about survival.
That's actually surprisingly philosophical.
Don't worry, I can ruin it. I also wear it because I look fantastic.
There it is.
You asked. The funny thing is that people assume wearing the suit makes you feel confident. Sometimes it's the opposite. You put on something that bright, walk into a crowd, and suddenly everybody is looking at you. You have to decide whether you're going to worry about what they think or just enjoy the fact that you've given them something to remember.
And judging by tonight's entrance, you've made your decision.
Years ago. Besides, after surviving Appalachia, I don't think a few people staring at my rocket suit are going to frighten me.
What has been the strangest reaction you've had?
Someone once asked me to pose beside their Brahmin because they thought the two of us would make a good advertisement. I agreed. The Brahmin did not cooperate. It chased me through the entire settlement while the photographer kept taking pictures.
That's dedication to the brand.
I still have the photographs. Honestly, they're some of my favorites.
So if you had to give Appalachia one message tonight, what would it be?
Don't let the wasteland convince you that you have to become miserable just because everything around you is miserable. Wear the ridiculous outfit. Build the strange camp. Drink the suspicious Nuka-Cola. Take the photograph. Make people laugh. You can take survival seriously without taking yourself seriously all the time.
That's a surprisingly good way to end the evening.
Thank you. I practiced that one.
And here I was beginning to think you were naturally profound.
I am. The rocket suit just makes it easier to notice.
Appalachia, our thanks to Nuka-Girl, reminding us that even after the end of the world, apparently there is still room for a little advertising. And judging by that suit, quite a lot of it. We'll be right back with the final moments of tonight's late shift. Well, tonight we met a strong man whose muscles were considerably more convincing than his personality. A daredevil who continues to treat severe bodily injury as a perfectly acceptable occupational hazard. Master Doshi, who has spent a lifetime pursuing wisdom while remaining completely incapable of behaving normally around beautiful women. And a Nuka-Girl who reminded us that even after the end of the world, there is still room for a little color, a little laughter, and apparently a very shiny rocket suit. 4 guests. 4 completely different approaches to surviving Appalachia. One relies on muscles, one relies on luck, one relies on wisdom, and one relies on the power of Nuka-Cola. Personally, I think the rocket suit has the strongest argument. And as for me, I've survived another evening of interviews without being fired, humiliated beyond recovery, or accidentally launched from a cannon. That's what I call professional progress. Good night, Appalachia. Stay safe, stay classified. God bless the Enclave. God bless America. This is the Late Shift.